We've all seen it before, those moments when players get the best of their opponent and let them know they did by rubbing it in their face. Some of them end up as iconic moments in history, and some are often forgotten. But let's pause for a moment and take a look back at the most disrespectful moments in NBA history and see if we can find the worst one of them yet. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, when looking back at these disrespectful moments displayed on an NBA basketball court, we're strictly talking about basketball plays that were completed with a little taunting, a shove, getting in a player's face. This does not include fights, all-out brawls, and things that occurred that were not basketball related. Kermit Washington's infamous punch on Rudy Tomjanovich that would send him to the hospital and require facial reconstructive surgery would not be included in this list, as that's really not a basketball play and reaches beyond the bounds of just being disrespectful, but rather these are those plays where the player absolutely embarrassed their opponent by not only scoring on them, but letting them know about it in humiliating fashion in front of a crowd of 20,000 people. First up, and you know I've got to start with this one, Scottie Pippen's dunk on Patrick Ewing in the 1994 NBA playoffs. After Michael Jordan retired for the first time to go play baseball, Scottie Pippen instantly became the Bulls' best player and #1 option on offense. People often forget that Pippen actually held down the fort during MJ's sabbatical from the game, leading the Bulls to 55 wins in the second round of the NBA playoffs in 1994 in a hard-fought battle against the New York Knicks. And although the Bulls would go on to lose that series, the most memorable moment of that series would be in this one, in which Scottie Pippen not only posterizes the Knicks franchise player in Patrick Ewing, who is significantly bigger than him, but would finish it off with a little push and a nice walkover while Ewing was on the ground. He even finished it off by letting Spike Lee know about it, how he got the best of their star center, which made the moment even more comical to me. And what was otherwise a season that was hard for Bulls fans after losing their superstar Michael Jordan, moments like these made the season memorable before MJ eventually made his return. Similar to Pippen's dunk on Ewing, although I would argue this one was even more disrespectful, was when Shaq made Chris Dudley his son in a regular season game against the Knicks. Shaq, as we all know, was known for his dominance back in the 90s and early 2000s. His sheer size, strength, combined with his impressive footwork, made it a challenge for any big man that he went up against. And poor Chris Dudley was no exception. Dudley was never anything more than a role player in the NBA, and being assigned to guard Shaq even in limited minutes was just torturous. And in a game where Shaq was straight up torching Dudley on every possession, he decided to cap it off with this posterizing dunk where he let Dudley take a good whiff of his junk and then proceed to give him a little shove after the teabag before making his way back on defense. What made this moment even funnier was Dudley becoming irate and picking up the ball and chucking it at Shaq, squarely hitting him in the back. It was a nice throw, give him credit, but nothing as embarrassing as the torture he had to suffer in guarding Shaq on that possession. Of course, there are other disrespectful dunks. You have Shawn Kemp, who was known for his highlight reel, powerful throwdown dunks in his heyday, and none was more iconic when he threw down this tomahawk that sent his opponent to the ground, which Kemp proceeded to finger point at Alton Lester, letting him know he made a mistake in trying to go up and block that shot. What's funny is that we all know this wouldn't stand in today's NBA. Kemp would have immediately been assessed a technical foul for this antic and likely would have been met with a hefty fine after the game. The days of taunting in this fashion are over, and I honestly miss them. But what about those disrespectful moments that didn't involve a player dunking on their defender's face? Who can forget Allen Iverson and his step over on Tyronn Lue? Hell, they've even made graphics of this image. People have followed that up with GIFs or putting other players' images over AI on Lue's face when someone gets owned on the court. But in this game, which was all the more important than just some regular season matchup, this was game 1 of the NBA Finals in LA. The Lakers were coming fresh off a championship in 2000 and were looking to repeat in 2001, and with the Western Conference clearly being more stacked than the East, and while the Sixers were good, they were still heavy underdogs going into that series. Most predicted it to be an easy sweep for the Lakers, but in game 1, Allen Iverson was on a new level and went ballistic in going for 48 points in one of the greatest performances in finals history. But what most people remember, though, is that famous step over after knocking down an incredible step back mid-range jumper that sent Lue to the ground in his attempt to keep up with Allen Iverson. And it would be finished off with AI doing a slow step over to tell Lue, nice try. The Sixers would go on to win this game on the back of Iverson's 48 points, but it would be the last game they would win in that series, as the Lakers would go on to win the next 4 straight and defend their title before eventually going on to three-peat. Step backs have become more commonplace in today's NBA, popularized by players such as James Harden and Steph Curry, and these step backs have led to a lot of disrespectful moments where the step back was so on point that it sent the defender flying in the other direction, sometimes sending them to the floor, and the shooter stares them down before sinking the wide open shot. Case in point, James Harden, that was especially disrespectful when he sent Wesley Johnson to the hardwood, tripping him up on his own feet, would stare him down, taking his time before putting up the shot, let him get back up, all but to sink this shot in his face. Harden has done this a lot to various opponents, sometimes missing the shot, but still letting the defender know that he got the best of him. This one in particular was especially bad, as it was one of the first we had seen Harden do, where he waited for his defender to get back up. Of course, it would not be right to make a video of the most disrespectful moments in NBA history without including the greatest player of all time, who made a career out of schooling his defenders and putting guys on posters who were significantly bigger than he was. But in a bloodbath of a playoff series against the Knicks in 1992 that would go on to a 7-game series, after dunking on Patrick Ewing and Anthony Mason, getting fouled in the process would send both Ewing and Mason tumbling over each other and Michael Jordan shouting in their faces while they laid there trying to figure out what the hell just happened. The Bulls, of course, would go on to win that series and subsequently win their second championship that year. And of course, MJ also dunking on Dikembe Mutombo and giving him the trademark wagging of the finger after throwing it down on him. But as biased as a Bulls fan as I am, you can't make a video on disrespectful moments and not include John Stark's posterizing of Horace Grant and, to an extent, Michael Jordan, who came over for the help defense in the 1993 NBA playoffs. No taunting or anything like that after the fact, but it being such a big moment for the smaller Starks to get up like that and throw it down against the Bulls late in the fourth quarter and would all but seal the game for the Knicks in that series made it all the more noteworthy. The Bulls, of course, would go on to win that series, though, and yet again win the championship for their third straight title. It also wouldn't be a proper video of disrespectful moments without including LeBron James, who would make Jason Terry wish he'd never played basketball when on Christmas Day, Heat versus Celtics, in an incredible alley-oop, LeBron would throw it down, skying high for the ball, and stand over Terry like he was a grown man that just dunked on a child. LeBron, of course, had a lot of these posterizing dunks throughout his career, but this one especially disrespectful when looking back over the course of his career. And it wouldn't be a disrespectful moments video without including the most infamous moment of Reggie Miller choking out the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden in 1995, really sending that message to Spike Lee, but as a whole to the Knicks organization. After the Knicks, who had a 6-point lead with 8.9 seconds left to go in the game, blew that lead when Reggie Miller scored 8 points in those final seconds of the game alone. It will forever be remembered as a moment in history that put Reggie Miller as one of the most hated players among Knicks fans, even to this day. There are, of course, a lot of other disrespectful moments in the NBA history. I do want to hear what are some of those moments you guys feel should have been included in the video, but as far as the most disrespectful among all of these, I don't think you can go against Allen Iverson stepping over Ty Lue, mainly because of the gravity and importance of the game, given it was the finals. You also compound that with the fact that AI was on one in that game and going off for a historic finals appearance, as opposed to it just being an isolated dunk or possession like some of these other ones that I mentioned. It was more of a culmination of what Allen Iverson was doing in that game and walking all over the Lakers and even the Sixers, who would go on to lose that series. It still doesn't take away from the insane game that Allen Iverson had that night and one of the most iconic, disrespectful moments in NBA history. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.